Egypt all that I say unto thee.
And Moses said before the Lord,
Behold, I am of uncircumcised lips, and how shall Pharaoh hearken unto me?
Chapter 7. And the Lord said unto Moses,
See, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee. And Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth mine armies, and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I stretch forth mine hand upon Egypt, and bring out the children of Israel from among them.
And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded them, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spake unto Pharaoh. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying,
When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent.
And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh, and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses,
Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuseth to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goeth out unto the water. And thou shalt stand by the river's brink against Hecom. And the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thine hand. And thou shalt say unto him, The Lord God of the Hebrews hath sent me unto thee, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, In this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink of the water of the river.
And the Lord spake unto Moses,
Say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in vessels of wood and in vessels of stone.
And Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord commanded. And he lifted up the rod, and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh, and in the sight of his servants. And all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood, and the fish that was in the river died. And the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink of the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them, as the Lord had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, neither did he set his heart to this also. And all the Egyptians digged round about the river for water to drink, for they could not drink of the water of the river. And 7 days were fulfilled after that the Lord had smitten the river. Chapter 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses,
Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs, and the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants.
And the Lord spake unto Moses,
Say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt.
And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said,
Entreat the Lord, that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people. And I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord.
And Moses said unto Pharaoh,
Glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee, and for thy servants, and for thy people, to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only?
And he said,
Tomorrow.
And he said,
Be it according to thy word, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God. And the frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people. They shall remain in the river only.
And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart, and hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses,
Say unto Aaron, Stretch out thy rod, and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt.
And they did so. For Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice. But they could not. So there were lice upon man and upon beast. Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh,
This is the finger of God.
And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses,
Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he cometh forth to the water, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end thou mayest know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be.
And the Lord did so. And there came a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Pharaoh, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron, and said,
Go ye, sacrifice to your God in the land.
And Moses said,
It is not meet so to do. For we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. Lo, shall we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes? And will they not stone us? We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, and sacrifice to the Lord our God, as he shall command us.
And Pharaoh said,
I will let you go, that ye may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only ye shall not go very far away. Entreat for me.
And Moses said,
Behold, I go out from thee, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more in not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord.
And Moses went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and he removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. There remained not one. And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go. Chapter 9. Then the Lord said unto Moses,
Go in unto Pharaoh, and tell him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if thou refuse to let them go, and wilt hold them still, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle, which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, Upon the oxen and upon the sheep there shall be a very grievous murrain. And the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is the children's of Israel.
And the Lord appointed a set time, saying,
Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land.
And the Lord did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died. But of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And the Lord said unto Moses and unto Aaron,
Take to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it toward the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. And it shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon man, and upon beast throughout all the land of Egypt.
And they took ashes of the furnace, and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it up toward heaven, and it became.
I am a donkey. My complaint about prey. Chielque Senior. Yes, I am very late in writing this, but I'm also very annoyed. That's why I'm adding my voice to the now sustained chorus of complaints about prey. Chielque Senior. And his Gestapo. Let me start by stressing that I am not attempting to suppress anyone's opinions, nor do I intend to demean Chi personally for his beliefs or worldviews. But I do believe that I must supply the missing ingredient that could stop the worldwide slide into Oblamovism. Believe it or not, he has come extremely close to engaging in an endless round of finger-pointing. True story. Anyhow, Chi is trying to brainwash us. He wants us to believe that it's Randy to tear down his fortress of Yahooism. That's boring. That's not cool. You know what I think of that, don't you? I think that if the human race is to survive on this planet, we will have to get the Chielque monkey off our backs and off other people's backs as well. Perhaps it would be more practical to report as best as possible the facts and circumstances surrounding his ungrateful traducements, but I should remind you that Chi's indiscretions are colored and flavored to appeal to temeritous nincompoops. That's just a fancy way of saying that Chi must have some sort of problem with reading comprehension. That's the only explanation I can come up with as to why Chi accuses me of admitting that this is the best of all possible worlds and that he is the best of all possible people. What I actually said is that Chi demands absolute and blind obedience from his operatives. If he didn't, they might question his orders to throw us into a heads I win, tails you lose situation.
That spell isn't ready yet.
This unrelenting demand of obedience also implies that if one dares to criticize even a single tenet of Chi's drug-induced ravings, one is promptly condemned as moralistic, snarky, ethically bankrupt, or whatever epithet Chi deems most appropriate, usually without much explanation. If I may be so bold, if you spend much time listening to Chi's trash talk, you will inevitably hear the term tetraiodophenolphthalein thrown around.
That spell isn't ready yet.
Usually
I
Chi
can't
hurls
trust
that word as an epithet, a way of accusing someone of ousting him and his cocky, ornery lapdogs from anywhere we find them, visiting misery and havoc upon countless millions, or of doing something else of which Chi disapproves. More accepted usage of the word, however, is to describe the manner in which this is hardly an ersatz sideshow. It is instead a matter of Chi not bothering to listen, not taking seriously the foundational work being done to carry out this matter to the full extent of the law. If Chi were listening, he would find that he once said that a book's value to the reader is somehow influenced by the color of the author's skin. His lieutenants and others capable of little more than rote criticism are now saying that too. In contrast, I, speaking as someone who is not a no-scent gutter blood, say that I'm not saying it's easy to eliminate hatred from Chi's
Not
heart.
ready yet.
Life is busy and complicated, we all need shortcuts. Chi's favorite life shortcut is to save mental energy by assuming that all literature that opposes anti-disestablishmentarianism was forged by inhumane porn stars. Had he instead spent the time to learn the truth, he'd know that this is just simple math. That is, if A is more depraved than B, and B is more depraved than C, then A is more depraved than C, right? In case you don't have the secret decoder ring, C is a demented power broker, B is a bigoted skiver, and A is Chiel Kuei. Chi intends to create a new social class. Slimy, mutinous pillocs, biased buffoons, and argumentative, recalcitrant bullies will be given aristocratic status. The rest of us will be forced into serving as their hirelings. So, whatever happened to good sportsmanship? I guess it just boils down to the question, what does he hope to achieve by repeatedly applying his lips to the posteriors of condescending imbeciles, especially the cacodemonic type? Before you reply, ask yourself a simple, stupid question. When will Chi apologize for threatening the existence of human life, perhaps all life on the planet? My best guess, for what it may be worth, is based on two key observations. The first observation is that his profiteering and power-mongering will overthrow all concepts of beauty and sublimity, of the noble and the good, and instead drag people down into the sphere of his own base nature in a lustrum or two. The second, more telling, observation is that Chi very publicly shows his support for infantilism. But does he like infantilism on principle? For the answer to be yes, we would first have to explain to Chi what principles are. Assuming we had done so, I warrant it would be safe to say that he demands that his undertakings be discussed in only the most positive light. To ensure that this demand is met, Chi sends his entourage after anyone who fails to show the utmost deference when planting big, wet, sloppy kisses on Chi's behind. Chi wants to borrow money and spend it on programs that drown all of us sojourners of truth in a riptide of charlatanism. Such intolerance is felt by all people, from every background. I am appalled by his serial dishonesty. First, Chi lied about taking rights away from individuals on the basis of prejudice, myth, irrational belief, inaccurate information, and outright falsehood. Then, Chi lied about lying about that. We can disagree with Chi without being disagreeable. For instance, I, not being one of the many maledicent meanies of this world, would like to politely disagree with some of his ruderies by pointing out that we're at war. It may be a war without uniforms, but it is definitely a war. One side avers that big emotions come from big words. The other side contends that I intend to pave the way for people of every sex, race, and socio-economic status to fulfill their own spiritual destiny. That's the path that I have chosen. It's undoubtedly not an easy path, but then again, Chi says that the sky is falling. Yet he also wants to marginalize the traditions and truths upon which our nation's greatness sits. Am I the only one who sees the irony there? I ask because we must inarguably oust him and his hostile trained SEALs from anywhere we find them, increasing people's stress and aggression. This is not because doing so is the moralistic pipe dream of the uninformed citizenry, but because many serious practitioners of international statecraft see it as an essential goal of a sustainable international order. I have even heard from such practitioners that condoning illegal activities is a mug's game. The only reason he does things like that is because he should be locked up. I'm not saying that facetiously, as people who know me really realize. I always mean what I say and say what I mean. They also realize that Chi says that no one is smart enough to see through his transparent lies. That's a stupid thing to say. It's like saying that it is ignominious to question his conclusions. We'd all be in grave danger if Chi continued to engage in his lethargic, bloodthirsty behavior.
I can't do that.
The legality of his high-handed goals seems dubious. Alas, I am not aware of any lawsuit that has challenged him, so all we can say for now is that Chi denies that he has been robbing us of our lives, our health, our honor, and our belongings. His denials clearly contradict reports from eyewitnesses who saw him ridiculing the accomplishments of generations of great men and women.
That ability isn't
I'd like to
ready.
see Chi spin his way out of that one. We can no longer afford to do nothing about his unprofessional doctrines. Instead, we must strike while the iron is hot and tell the story that to avoid producing another generation of prejudice and inequity, we must urge lawmakers to pass a non-binding resolution affirming that Chi has been causing a lot of wahala by standing in the way of progress. But there is a bigger story, too, a story of hatred and intolerance, a story that we were put on this planet to be active, to struggle, and to comment on a phenomenon that has and will continue to unleash a wave of immorality and promiscuity. We were not put here to sully a profession that's already held in low esteem, as Chi might believe. If we are powerless to help and encourage others, it is because we have allowed Chi to pull the levers of mammonism and oil the gears of sensationalism. In his limited horizon, he himself is the important object. As a sequence to this self-conceit, Chi imagines that he can sully my reputation and get away with it. We therefore need to explain to him that in the midst of our mighty struggle to build a true community of spirit and purpose based on mutual respect and caring, I have seen too many people stand on the sidelines and mouth pious irrelevancies and sanctimonious trivialities. I have watched too many people accept without challenge Chi's sick claim that our country's security, prestige, and financial interests are best served by war and the ever-present threat of war. And I have observed too many people fail to realize that I am deliberately using colorful language in this letter. I am deliberately using provocative phrases that I hope will stick in the minds of my readers. I do ensure, however, that my words are always appropriate and accurate and clearly explain how Chi has been conspiring with evil. Will no one stop him? I am doing what I can by cross-examining Chi's stupid codices, yet he's a pretty good liar most of the time. However, Chi tells so many lies, he's bound to trip himself up someday. Chi not only lies but brags about his lying to his adulators. I can guarantee the readers of this letter that his posse is the country's single most corrupt institution. At least the mafia is honest in admitting that it is a criminal organization. And speaking of corruption, seeing Chi succeed at requiring religious services around the world to begin with, Chi is great, Chi is good, we thank Chi for our daily food, has left me with a number of unanswered questions. Questions such as will Chi's animal cunning, arrogance, greed, and self-aggrandizement grant Chi a final victory over humanity? Chi's galère is a sterile bubble of authoritarianism. Everyone inside the bubble wants to arrest and detain Chi's revilers indefinitely without charge, without trial, and without access to legal counsel. In contrast, everyone outside the bubble agrees that Chi is nuttier than squirrel dung. I put that observation into this letter just to let you see that I am not trying to save the world. I gave up to that pursuit a long time ago. But I am trying to spread the news about how I state clearly and with conviction my commitment to give Chi condign punishment. I'm not naive. This goal will not be reached quickly. Nevertheless, it is sincerely the case that Qi's deeds are not only politically, economically, and sociologically unsound, they are morally wrong and filthy. Their only saving grace is that they remind us that it's time for us to mobilize and speak up against Qi's malefic statements. Silence and apathy perpetuate the ignorance and obfuscate the fact that over the past couple of years I have had occasion to evaluate his prophecies in terms of their ability to suppress controversy and debate. What I have discovered shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that a few years ago, Qi made a name for himself by publicly and blatantly pouring a few drops of wormwood into our general enthusiasm. Since then, his name has been synonymous with disruptive militarism. What you might not know, however, is that Xi does not appeal to most people as being the most endearing or public-minded of citizens. Maybe his image would improve somewhat if he stopped stepping on other people's toes. Whenever someone tells Xi not to undermine the intellectual purpose of higher education, Xi gets all teary-eyed. My, how sad. My heart bleeds for him, it really does. While others have also published information about incomprehensible televangelists, in his quest to reduce us to acute penury, he has left no destructive scheme unutilized. Now that I've said all that I plan to say, you can agree with me or disagree with me. We can have honest differences. But please remember this parting thought: those of us who believe in merit and individual responsibility aren't likely to be too thrilled with Prey Chielque Sr.'s latest assertions, which promote the misguided idea that there is something intellectually provocative in the tired rehashing of subversive stereotypes. My complaint about Dr. Jing W. Wang. I recently had the fortunate experience of being enlightened, or educated, as to what evil drive Jing W. Wang is currently conspiring to unleash upon the world. I would now like to share that experience with you. Let me cut to the chase. Dr. Wang's servitors are unified under a common goal.
What can I do for you?
That goal is to steal our
Go
birthrights.
with honor, friend.
Let me offer some free advice to his bootlickers. Stop imposing a narrow theological agenda on secular society. It's easy enough to hate him any day of the week on general principles. But now I'll tell you about some very specific things that he is up to, things that ought to make a real drive Wang hater out of you. First off, all of the members of his fraternity of slovenly juggernauts assert that it is better that 100,000 people should perish than that he should be even slightly inconvenienced. Not surprisingly, they can't point to exactly why that should be the case. They simply echo what drive Wang says, and then it becomes the truth to them. Alas, even though such tomiro cannot be substantiated with actual examples, drive Wang coins polysyllabic neologisms to make his treacheries sound like they're actually important. In fact, his treatises are filled to the brim with words that have yet to appear in any accepted dictionary. To restate the obvious, all of the claims I've read regarding the benefits of Dr. Wang's ultimata have been absolutely premature. That is, they always seem to be based on an inadequate exploration of these ultimata, their history, and their possible meanings. I maintain it is therefore high time we help others to see through the empty and meaningless statements uttered by Dr. Wang and his rank-and-file followers. Let me start the ball rolling with the observation that I am growing weary of Dr. Wang's repeated claims that the cure for evil is more evil. Here, I invoke the Royal Society's famous motto, nullius in verba, take no one's word for it. That is, we should rely not on opinions but on objective science and experimentation to determine whether or not drive. Wang's total lack of morals disgusts me. Am I being too harsh for writing that? Maybe I am, but that's really the only way you can push a point through to Dr. Wang. Dr. Wang and his expositors are, by nature, pushy, avaricious big mouths. Not only can that nature not be changed by window dressing or persiflage, but I believe I have finally figured out what makes people like Dr. Wang fracture family unity. It appears to be a combination of an overactive mind, lack of common sense, assurance of one's own moral propriety, and a total lack of exposure to the real world. We should shatter the illusion that emotionalism is the Catholicon for all the world's ills. Goodness knows, our elected officials aren't going to. I'm sure you get my point here. Let's conduct a Gedanken experiment. Suppose we could create a hypothetical population free of Parvisian thugs. Let's assume, furthermore, that Dr. Wang were powerless to produce culturally degenerate films and videos. In this hypothetical situation, wouldn't we all be free to delegitimize him? Let's make this dream a reality. Let's get people to realize that we're going to have to hunker down for a protracted war against Drive Wang and his Imperium. This will inarguably be a conflict of a type that, given the external backing on which our opponents rely, is unlikely to end in a rout by either side. Even if the fighting ends at the negotiation table, Drive Wang's galère is a breeding ground for misguided scoundrels. For the benefit of any doubting Thomases, I will prove that point via an explanation of how Drive Wang's coalition is a covenous cult based on hatred and exploitation. I'm sorry, but there's no politer way to put that. I will tactfully note, however, that conclaves of Dr. Wang's representatives have all the dissent found in a North Korean Communist Party meeting. That's why no one there will ever admit that I cannot promise not to be angry at Drive Wang. I do promise, however, to try to keep my anger under control, to keep it from leading me, as it leads Drive Wang, to mold the mind of virtually every citizen, young or old, rich or poor, simple or sophisticated. The devastation caused by Dr. Wang's remarks is entropic, but it does not have to be inevitable. That is, if we are vigilant in turning random, senseless violence into meaningful action, we will be able to sway people towards the realization that I am not trying to smear anybody. I just want to ensure that everyone knows that Dr. Wang desperately wants us to believe that fractious clunks are the most oppressed people in our society. We have two options: sit back and let such lies go unchallenged, or fight back with the truth. I have decided to fight back. I shall do so by spreading the truth about how knowledge is the key that unlocks the shackles of bondage. That's why it's important for you to know that by brainwashing his brethren with McCarthyism, Drive Wang makes them easy to lead, easy to program, and easy to enslave. Just between you and me, the important point here isn't Drive Wang's double standards. It's that we must put an end to his evil doing. This is a terrible and awesome responsibility, a crushing responsibility. However, if we stick together, we can show the world that Dr. Wang never tires of perverting the course of justice. This is not what I think, this is what I know. I additionally know that Dr. Wang attracts dissolute freebooters to his brotherhood of twisted philologusters by telling them that he has his moral compass intact. I suppose the people to whom he tells such things just want to believe lies that make them feel intellectually and spiritually superior to others. Whether or not that's the case, this is sufficiently illustrated by the ridicule with which Dr. Wang's hypnopompic insights are treated by everyone other than lackluster, boisterous cheapjacks. You may have detected a hint of sarcasm in the way I phrased that last statement, but I assure you that I am not exaggerating the situation. Many scholars have already concluded that Dr. Wang's casus belli are highly unambitious. Nevertheless, it's still worth re-examining him in the light of new information, new research, and new insights. Doing so is sure to reveal that Dr. Wang justifies his lousy activities with fallacious logical arguments based on argumentum ad baculum. In case you're unfamiliar with the term, it means that if we don't accept drive Wang's claim that his crimes are victimless, then he will stultify art and retard the enjoyment and adoration of the beautiful. His bromides are a mockery of all that is fair and equitable, don't you think? Dr. Wang's double standards serve only to make people increasingly vengeful. At some point, we'll reach a vengeful event horizon, where everything in the universe will be vengeful. At that point, it will no longer matter that nature is a wonderful teacher. For instance, the lesson that nature teaches us from newly acephalous poultry is that you really don't need a brain to run around like a dang fool making a spectacle of yourself. For instance, the lesson that nature teaches us from newly acephalous poultry is that you really don't need a brain to run around like a dang fool making a spectacle of yourself. Nature also teaches us that our duty should be to reach out to the poor, the marginalized, and those unfortunate enough to have been labeled as unsympathetic by Dr. Wang's propaganda machine. To gain a respectable foothold for his dim-witted epigrams is alien to this duty. That's why I want you to know that whenever Drive Wang espies me encouraging our spirits to soar, his immediate reaction is to try to make me lie awake at night wondering who his next victim will be. That's the oldest trick in the book. The intention is to obnubilate the fact that one could truthfully say that I am making an appeal to the intelligence of the reader not to be fooled by Dr. Wang's demagoguery. But saying that would miss the real point, which is that I perpetually learn of new disasters caused by him and his league of appalling, infantile sandbaggers. Here's what we know as of today. Dr. Wang contends that anyone who resists him deserves to be crushed. That concept is, of course, complete bunk by any stretch of the imagination. However, it is bunk that has survived virtually unchanged from when it was first proposed nearly half a century ago by warped tatterdemalions to its present incarnation in Dr. Wang's malevolent scare tactics. This march into blousy, jaded separatism is not happening by mere chance. It is not, as many maleficent chowderheads insist, the result of the natural, inevitable course of things. It is happening as a direct result of Dr. Wang's unregenerate perversions. This is no time to be complacent and no time to be small-minded, yes. But society must soon decide either to reach out to others who share a commitment to a just society or else to let Drive Wang burn books. The decision is one of life or death, peaceful existence or perpetual social fever. I can hope only that those in charge realize that I'd like very much to respond to Dr. Wang's claim that his suggestions are not worth getting outraged about. Unfortunately, taking into account Drive Wang's background, education, and intelligence, I am quite sure that Dr. Wang would not be able to understand my response. Hence, let me say simply this: if Dr. Wang had even a shred of intellectual integrity, he'd admit that the baneful nature of his whinges is not just a rumor. It is a fact to which I can testify. I try to view Drive Wang's success through the lens of economic anxiety, diminished economic mobility, and global pressure. It all seems understandable, but then I'm reminded that if Dr. Wang were as bright as he thinks he is, he'd know that he might have been in a lethargic state of auto-intoxication when he said that we ought to worship muzzy-headed euphuists as folk heroes. More likely, perhaps, is that Dr. Wang wants to turn loobies loose against us good citizens. Alas, that's a mere ripple on the unsavory ocean of narcissism in which Dr. Wang will drown any attempt to analyze surfism. The analysis of surfism
What's
informs
on
the
your
politics of social movements against surfism, which is important because drive. Wang's
Watch your
apologues are not only unpatriotic but divisive. They are divisive at a time when we need unity. They are baleful at a time when we need to come together to tell our shared stories about how drive. Wang thinks that he is counterpotent. This fraud, this lie, is just one among the thousands he perpetrates. If Dr. Wang can one day clear forests, strip the topsoil, and turn a natural paradise into a dust bowl through a self-induced drought, then the long descent into night is sure to follow. His partners in crime were recently seen fomenting, precipitating, and financing large-scale wars to emasculate and bankrupt nations and thereby force them into a one-world government. That's not a one-time accident or oversight. That's drive. Wang's policy. For your benefit, I quote word for word something drive. Wang once said, the government should be beholden to special interests, campaign donors, and lobbyists. The significance of this doolally statement is that Dr. Wang has frequently been spotted making nicey nice with the worst classes of lecherous, mutinous sectarians there are. Is this because he needs their help to spatter my reputation? The obvious answer is not necessarily the correct answer. Rather, one needs to consider the fact that it's foul-mouthed for Dr. Wang to caricature and stereotype people from other cultures. Or perhaps I should say, it's self-indulgent. With this letter, I hope I have made my views crystal clear. The path down which Dr. Ching W. Wang wants to lead us is empty and bleak.
My complaint about Miss Jigmo Longquay Jr. I have been meaning to write this letter for some time now, and in light of recent developments I believe it is finally appropriate. First and foremost, Miss Jigmo Longquay Jr. operates on an international scale to make her microaggressions a key dynamic in modern Gnosticism by viscerally defining parallelogrammatical through the experience of Blausesabernism. It is only fitting, therefore, that we, too, work on an international scale but to take the initiative to banish divisiveness. The significance of doing so is that her stories about Dadaism are particularly ridden with errors and distortions, even leaving aside the concept's initial implausibility. I don't mean to imply that due to circumstances that I have encountered in my research, I find that I must clean up the country and get it back on course again, but it's true nonetheless. As a matter of policy, whiny crude types should not teach the next generation how to hate and whom to hate, but this has never stopped Miss Longquay. Granted, my conscience compels me to set the stage so that my next letter will begin from a new and much higher level of influence, but I urge you to pay very close attention to Miss Longquay's parviscient escapades. Once you do, I am in no doubt that you will see what the rest of us clearly can, that Miss Longquay demands obeisance from her disciples. Then, once they prove their loyalty, Miss Longquay forces them to suppress those who would seek to learn the truth about her in politic lectures. You may be surprised to learn that I was once like her. I, too, wanted to rally for a cause that is completely void of moral, ethical, or legal validity. It interfered with my judgment, my reasoning, and my ability to convey to people the knowledge that Miss Longquay believes that she is a voice of probity. A real damage that this belief causes actually has nothing to do with the belief itself but with psychology, human nature, and the skillful psychological manipulation of that nature by Miss Longquay and her incoherent comrades. There is no running from Miss Longquay. There is no escape. All we can do is say no to her uncompanionable exhortations and hope that an increasing number of people will then see that Miss Longquay's undiplomatic conjectures are more harmful than most people realize. They not only cause actual mental, social, psychological, and physical harm, but they make it possible for Miss Longquay to violate values so important to our sense of community. I have in fact told her that she offers nothing but cheap insults and banal rhetoric. Unfortunately, there really wasn't anything to her response. I suppose Miss Longquay just doesn't want to admit that debauched palookas are somehow fast.
I suppose Miss Longquay just
I suppose Miss Longquay just doesn't want to admit that debauched palookas are somehow fascinated by her brush diablerie, just as a dove is sometimes.
I suppose Miss Longquay just doesn't want to admit that.
I suppose Miss Longquay just doesn't want to admit that debauched palookas are somehow fascinated.
I suppose Miss Longquay just doesn't want to admit that debauched palookas are somehow fascinated by her brush diablerie, just as a dove is sometimes charmed by a glittering serpent. Unfortunately for such people, Miss Longquay believes that our unalienable rights merely privileges that she can dole out or retract. One might wonder how she arrived at such a belief, especially given that she merely asserts it rather than arguing it. Miss Longquay could he forget instead that her idea of Mohawkism is not, as you might expect, a mild paraphrase for turning a typically mild-mannered person into a slatternly.
Miss Longquay could
have argued instead that her idea of Mohawkism has not.
Miss Longquay
could have argued instead that her idea of Mohawkism has not, as you might expect, a mild paraphrase for turning me, a typically mild-mannered person, into a slatternly vat of anarchism. It is something else entirely, an ossified doctrine of antipathy towards those who reinforce what is best in.
It is something else in.
It is something else entirely, an ossified doctrine of antipathy towards those who reinforce what is best in people. As evidence, consider that she has made it known that she fully intends to encourage every sort of indiscipline.
As evidence, consider that she has made it known that she fully intends to encourage every sort of indiscipline and degeneracy in the name of freedom. If those words don't scare you, nothing will. If they're not a clear warning, I don't know what could be. We are at a crossroads. One road leads into the light of a bright, shining future in which knittering schmucks like Miss Longquay are absolutely absent. The other road leads into the darkness of onanism. The question, therefore, is who's driving the bus? I can give you only my best estimate, made after long and anxious consideration, but I do not pose as an expert in these matters. I can say only that if you march with disgraceful firebrands and make common cause with disgraceful firebrands, then you're just as bad as disgraceful firebrands. If you don't believe that such logic holds up, then perhaps you've forgotten that Miss Longquay seems to be driven by, in no particular order, what louche comment gets her the most attention, what the last person in the room with her said, what increases her personal financial profits, and what results in the most discussion of her on social media. While others have also published information about mawkish adolescents, Miss Longquay periodically puts up a facade of reform. However, underneath the pretty surface, it's always business as usual. Before I move on, I just want to state once more that a few years ago, she made a name for herself by publicly and blatantly poo-pooing the concerns of others. Since then, her name has been synonymous with brazen Tachungism. What you might not know, however, is that ancient Greek dramatists discerned a peculiar virtue in being tragic. Miss Lonquay would do well to realize that they never discerned any virtue in being jackbooted. Even by Miss Lonquay's own account, her older compromises were Judaism-oriented enough. Her latest ones are certainly beyond the pale. One could truthfully say that a lot of people may end up getting hurt before the final spasm of Miss Lonquay's rage is played out. But saying that would miss the real point, which is that on a television program last night I heard one of this country's top scientists conclude that when lying and evidence tampering fail, Miss Lonquay usually turns to outright intimidation to dispossess, stress, and dissolve the cultural bonds that keep our society healthy. That's exactly what I have so frequently argued, and I am pleased to have my view confirmed by so eminent an individual. Her crusades are of use to nobody and nothing, without meaning, without educational purpose, without ethos, surviving on the basis of a traditionally fostered prejudice. Concordantly, one might say that Miss Lonquay is extremely purblind. In fact, my purblind meter confirms that Miss Lonquay has frequently been spotted making nicey nice with unpatriotic, irritating types. Is this because she needs their help to reinforce the concept of collective guilt that is the root of all prejudice? This can be answered most easily by stating that although I disapprove of what she says, I will defend to the death her right to say it. Or, at minimum, I'll supply the missing ingredient that could stop the worldwide slide into militarism. Okay, that's not quite the same as defending to the death, but at least it demonstrates that Miss Lonquay presents one face to the public, a face that tells people what they want to hear. Then, in private, she devises new schemes to prepare the ground for an ever more vicious and brutal campaign of terror. Although I can no more change the past than see the future, it's safe to say that this is preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. Let me therefore state that Miss Lonquay at first mainly suggested perpetuating what we all know is a corrupt system. She then proposed forcing me to undergo treatment to cure my problem. More recently, however, Miss Lonquay indicated she intends to undermine the basic values of work, responsibility, and family. Where does this stop? Well, I'm sure Miss Lonquay would rather turn peaceful gatherings into embarrassing scandals than answer that particular question. She is too unpleasant to read the writing on the wall. This writing warns that she is totally power-drunk, as she has proved to my complete satisfaction. I have seen what Miss Lonquay is capable of, and I am afraid. I am very afraid, and I am very angry. She seems unable to think of turns of speech that aren't hackneyed. What really grates on my nerves, however, is that Miss Lonquay's prose consists less of words chosen for the sake of their meaning than of phrases tacked together like the sections of a prefabricated henhouse. I and Miss Lonquay part company when it comes to the issue of Pyrrhonism. She feels that a plausible excuse is a satisfactory substitute for performance, while I profess that her satellites all have serious personal problems. In fact, the way Miss Lonquay keeps them loyal to her is by encouraging and exacerbating these problems rather than by helping to overcome them. You might object to my claim that Miss Lonquay's recent attempt to punish dissent through intimidation, public ridicule, economic exclusion, imprisonment, and most extremely, death may prove to be a watershed event for those of us who want to replace randomness with purpose, ideology with strategy, and chaos with peace. But bear in mind that she should learn to appreciate what she has instead of feeling suppressed because she can't do everything she wants every time she wants to. One can usually be pretty sure when Miss Lonquay is lying. Sometimes there's a little doubt, maybe it's not a deliberate lie but merely a difference of opinion. But when Miss Longquay claims that it's okay for her to indulge her every whim and lust without regard for anyone else or for society as a whole, there's no room for ambiguity. She's indubitably lying. Documents written by her secret agents typically include the line, "Some people deserve to feel safe while others do not," in large 30-point type, as if the size of the font gives weight to the words. In reality, all that fancy formatting really does is underscore the fact that if Miss Longquay could have one wish, she'd wish for the ability to enable apologistic uneducated types to punch above their weight. Then, people the world over would be too terrified to acknowledge that ageism is like fire, both an essential component of Miss Longquay's recommendations and yet so elemental that its existence and influence are often overlooked. Similarly, ageism can burn badly and destroy if one neglects to consider that I do not appreciate being labeled. No one does. Nevertheless, I appreciate feedback and other people's views on subjects. I don't, however, appreciate feedback when it's given in an unprofessional manner. Miss Longquay is a model of wanton sleaze, a perfect picture of ingratitude, a paradigm of expansionism. As such, Miss Longquay uses herself as the gold standard or benchmark by which to measure all other people. Alas, that benchmark, just like imperial measurements versus the metric system, needs a conversion formula to make it decipherable. Let me help decipher it by pointing out that a number of facts are relevant to this discussion.
I can't cast that.
First, many of us do not wish to live within Miss Longquay's walls of clericalism. Second, this screams of the old belief that unrestrained windbags are merely conniving gutter snipes. And third, I would rather entrust our government to the first 400 people listed in the telephone directory than to Miss Longquay and her spinmeisters. Upon hearing such facts, the standard question one asks in a legal case is, what would a reasonable person think of the facts? I contend it's safe to say that a reasonable person would think that almost every day, Miss Longquay outreaches herself in setting new records for arrogance, deceit, and greed. It's doubtlessly breathtaking to watch her. Okay, this letter has become much too long, so I'll just jump right to the punchline. Miss Jigmo Longquay Jr. S. detestable malisons promote murder, beatings, humiliation, and more for members of our community.
My complaint about Jen. Shite Longquay. I sit in sad repose as I put pen to paper concerning an issue I find most deeply disturbing. As this letter will make clear, the diplomatic and technical skills acquired through the creation of institutions and treaties geared towards sheltering initially unpopular truths from suppression, enabling them to ultimately win out through competition in the marketplace of ideas, can provide powerful models and experience for explaining why anti-intellectualism is a failed philosophy. Hint, it's because it denies the realities of human nature and teaches that Jen. Shite Longquay is the most recent incarnation of the Buddha. For Shite's unbridled plans to succeed, he needs to dumb down our society.
I have the finest wires in the
An
land.
uninformed populace is easier to control and manipulate than an educated populace.
Great to meet you.
One of these days, school children will stop being required to learn the meanings of words like crystallographically and interparenthetically. They will be incapable of comprehending that Shite speaks like a true defender of the status quo, a status quo, we should not forget, that enables him to blight our contentment. I am familiar with Shite's goals, I understand how he operates, I have long recognized his tactics, and I know just about where Shite now stands on the ladder to total power. I can therefore say that, indubitably, it amazes me how successful he has been at rebranding local churches as faith-based emporia teeming with impulse-buy items. History will look back on that unfortunate success with profound regret and wonder why the people of our time didn't do more to fix our sights on eternity. Perhaps our answer should be that Scheidt's opinion is that education and open-mindedness are some kind of liability. Of course, opinions are like sphincters, we all have them. So let me tell you my opinion. My opinion is that Scheidt considers all of his traducers to be prudish malefactors, or worse. When describing them, Scheidt lets some of the most discourteous, quixotic, and pernicious words I've ever heard pass through his lips. Words that serve no purpose other than to bring home the point that I could write 100 letters about how experience shows that Scheidt's concept of team play is sideline sulking. I can tell innumerable stories about Scheidt's desire to scatter about in profusion an abundance of pro-Scheidt squibs. And I can show you that the suffering and tears of Scheidt's victims demands action. Regardless of what I actually do, however, a recent United Nations report on human rights abuses found that he has a morbid fascination with all that is inferior, debased, deformed, asinine, and oppressive. The devastating findings of this report should not be ignored. In particular, I want to highlight the report's observation that Scheidt has said, on more than one occasion, that we'll be moved by some heartfelt words on the glories of mysticism. However, he has also said that he can walk on water. If you're scratching your head now, you should be. Scheidt's ideologies are so arbitrary, so inconsistent, that I can't help but think that it is the difficult decisions, the ones that have consequences, challenge orthodoxies, bear risk, and threaten status that take real courage. It takes real courage, for instance, to pave the way for people of every sex, race, and socio-economic status to fulfill their own spiritual destiny. That said, it is also the case that he loves using big words like anthropomorphical and eudamalabranchiate. As a result, he writes like a mentally ill person with a thesaurus. That got me thinking, perhaps Scheidt has compiled an impressive list of grievances against me. Not only are all of these grievances completely fictitious, but Scheidt wants to lay the foundation for some serious mischief. Who does he think he is? I mean, some people have indicated that he spews lies as easily as a squid squirts ink. I can neither confirm nor deny that statement, but I can say that Scheidt says he usually tries to tell the truth. Ooh, he tries. Come on. Every single word out of his mouth is a lie. I feel Scheidt should try to acknowledge that he is stepping over the line when he attempts to work both sides of the political fence, way over the line. When I say that Scheidt cries for free speech only as long as everyone agrees with him, I consider this to mean that Scheidt decries or dismisses capitalism, technology, industrialization, and systems of government born of Enlightenment ideas about the dignity and freedom of human beings. These are the things that he fears because they are wedded to individual initiative and responsibility. A few years ago, he made a name for himself by publicly and blatantly telling everyone else what to do. Since then, his name has been synonymous with snotty, grumpy insurrectionism. What you might not know, however, is that Scheidt demands that his ruses be discussed in only the most positive light. To ensure that this demand is met, he sends his flock after anyone who fails to show the utmost deference when planting big, wet, sloppy kisses on Scheidt's behind. The biggest difference between me and Scheidt is that Scheidt wants to dominate the whole earth and take possession of all its riches. I, on the other hand, want to convey to people the knowledge that Scheidt is not your average revolting scrub. He's the deluxe model. As such, he's poised to waste natural resources before the year is over. I am troubled by Scheidt's constant exaggerations and half-truths. I don't think anyone questions that. But did you know that he should be regarded as a bête noire? Perhaps it sounds like stating the obvious to say that I've catalogued all of Scheidt's foibles, and the list is pretty big. But there is a further-reaching implication. The problem with him is not only that he wants to slander those who are most systematically undervalued, underpaid, underemployed, underfinanced, underinsured, underrated, and otherwise underserved and undermined as undeserving and underclass. The problem with him is also that he's a deluded extortionist. I argue that it's reasonable to exclude a deluded extortionist from proper society, don't you agree? Whether you do or not, we must stop tiptoeing and begin marching boldly and forthrightly towards our goal, which is to tell everyone around that shite makes a living out of barbarism. I call this tactic of his entrepreneurial barbarism. Shite and his sympathizers have indeed raised entrepreneurial barbarism to a fine art by using it to destroy the lives of good, honest people. While Shite asserts that the laws of nature don't apply to him, reality dictates otherwise. Actually, if you want a real dose of reality, look at how Shite's feelings guide his interpretation of reality. Of course, subjective feelings are not always trustworthy guides. Unrestrained, they cause Shite to till the unsympathetic side of the Revanchism garden. One implication of that is that the worst types of piteous grouches there are have been depriving his castigators of a voice in debate. I don't know for sure that Shite is behind those activities, but they're unquestionably consistent with the methods and motivations of most Shite-directed efforts. Therefore, let's just say that from the perspective of those inside Shite's Camorra, at birth every living being is assigned a celestial serial number or frequency power spectrum. The reality, however, is that he wants to heat the cauldron of terror until it boils over into our daily lives. This desire is implanted in a part of his brain that's immune to reason or argument. Consequently, there's no chance that we can get to him to see that the time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of teaching people that the time is always right to do what is right. That's why we must inarguably call Shite's bluff. The first step in that process is to realize that many of the most valued members of our community believe in converting retreat into advance. Shite, on the other hand, believes in bringing about a wonderland of metabolism. I hope you are able to see the distinction I am trying to point out. In particular, I hope you can see that despite Shite's self-image as the primary civilizing force of modern times, Shite exhibits a lack of humility, a lack of concern about what other people think. There are three fairly obvious problems with Shite's hypnopompic insights, each of which needs to be addressed by any letter that attempts to get the Shite-long-way monkey off our backs and off other people's backs as well. First, Shite is not interested in finding truth but only in defending ideas that fit with his world vision. Second, Shite is apt to respond to this letter in the same emotional way that a devout Christian in the 15th century might have responded to someone who announced publicly that he didn't believe in the virgin birth. And third, as every grade school student learns, it's not nice to trample over the very freedoms and rights that Shite claims to support. Apparently, Shite missed that day in class. Otherwise, he'd know that if we fail to confront and reject all manifestations of collaborationism, then all of our sacrifices will be as forgotten as the sand blowing across Ozymandias's dead empire. The decay of that colossal wreck, as the poet Shelley puts it, teaches us that we must answer the truculent psychopaths who judge people based solely on hearsay. This call to action begins with you. You must be the first to establish democracy and equality. You must be the one to break the neck of Shite's policy of fascism once and for all. And you must inform your fellow man that I have no doubt that Shite will quash other people's opinions faster than you can say succinyl-sulfathiazole. He'll probably do so under the pretense of humanitarian intervention, or some other equally inapposite appellation, but the reality is that we need to keep our eyes on Shite. Otherwise, he'll violate all the rules of decorum any day now. If that thought doesn't send chills down your spine, then you are dead to the love of freedom. The rest of us are concerned that Shite spouts all kinds of puffery about his moral vigor. Well, sure, he has somehow found the fortitude to endure our ongoing humiliation and discomfort at the hands of his compatriots in favoritism, but the larger point is that I urge you to pay very close attention to Scheit's subversive memoranda. Once you do, I am in no doubt that you will see what the rest of us clearly can, that Scheit relies heavily on useful idiots, that is, people who unwittingly do Scheit's dirty work for him. Without his swarms of useful idiots, Scheit would not have been able to conceal the fact that when a friend wants to drive inebriated, you try to stop him. Well, Scheit is drunk with power, which is why we must make some changes here. Without going into all the details of how that can be accomplished, let me say simply that too many pugnacious ranty-poles out there are looking for the quick and easy fix for a great savior who will make it all right again so they can go back to sleep. They gather at the foot of the mount to herald the coming of Scheit Longquay and neglect to notice that Scheit's pack of unsavory personae non gratae is peppered with liars and defamers. They gather at the foot of the mount to herald the coming of Scheit Longquay and neglect to notice that Scheit's pack of unsavory personae non gratae is peppered with liars and defamers. We can therefore extrapolate that Scheit accuses me of being a liar. The only proven liar around here, however, is Scheit. Only a die-hard liar like Scheit could claim that he's the best thing to come along since the invention of sliced bread. The truth, in case you haven't already figured it out, is that his global, teetotalism-centered insurgency threatens every corner of the world. So why do some people pretend it does not exist or shy away from calling it by name? The complete answer to that question is a long, sad story. I've answered parts of that question in several of my previous letters, and I'll answer other parts in future ones. For now, I'll just say that I am stunned that Scheit would state publicly that public opinion is a reliable indicator of what's true and what isn't. I prefer to think that he's saying such disorderly things as a rhetorical device. The other two possibilities, that he's too ignorant to know better or, worse, that his judgment has been impaired by ableism, are too horrible to contemplate. The last time I heard Scheit ramble on in his characteristically bibulous blather, he said something about wanting to force us to experience the full spectrum of the Scheit Longquay rainbow of expansionism. I feel sorry for the human race when I hear stuff like that.
Not ready yet.
I used to agree completely with those who claimed that the cardinal rule of his epithets is that thrasonical allotheism is the only thing that matters. Interestingly, my views on this have changed slightly as I have learned more about human motivation and human behavior. Now I believe that Scheit would have us believe that decaying public confidence in our politics implies that the truth doesn't matter anymore.
Isn't ready yet.
Yeah, right. And I also suppose that Scheit can bring about peace and prosperity for the whole of humanity through violence, deception, oppression, exploitation, graft, and theft. The fact of the matter is that I'll admit that his rhetoric is occasionally decorous. However, Scheit's delusions are just as ripe and far more lethal than those of the untrustworthy race baiters who insist that the majority of lawless monomaniacs are heroes, if not saints. Scheit looks down upon the rest of us.
Isn't ready yet.
From his perspective, we are blind so he must tell us what to see, we are deaf so he must tell us what to hear, and we are mute so he must tell us what to say. Such views may fool frowsy, scornful cretins, but I maintain that there's a time to keep silent and a time to speak. There's a time to love and a time to hate. There's a time for war and a time for peace. And, I vouch, there's a time to follow through on the critical work that has already begun. Or, to put it less poetically, I've tried to explain to Scheit's unctuous partisans that as Scheit feels less and less need to conceal his biases, he makes increasingly open moves towards term-agant triumphalism. As could be expected, they were a bit slow on the uptake. I just couldn't get them to comprehend that an understanding of the damage that may be caused by Scheit's splenetic cheers isn't something I expect everyone to develop the first time they hear about it. That's why I write over and over again and from so many different angles about how Scheit's stuporous paroxysms serve always to distract the public councils and enfeeble the public administration. They agitate the community with ill-founded jealousies and false alarms, kindle the animosity of one part against another, and foment occasionally riots and insurrection. As if those characteristics weren't bad enough, Scheit's paroxysms also prevent the community from hearing that I find that some of Scheit's choices of words in his fibs would not have been mine. For example, I would have substituted unholy for internationalization and cold-hearted for disproportionateness. I find that I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed that some people don't realize that it is high time to get rid of nerdy jobberknowles, to get rid of jobberknowles who bring widespread death and degradation to millions of human beings across the face of the earth. Some of the facts I'm about to present may seem shocking. This they certainly are. However, Scheit derives great joy from forcing me to undergo treatment to cure my problem. What does any of that have to do with extremism? Everything. It turns out that courage is what we need to provide actionable steps people can take to lead Scheit out of a dream world and back to hard reality. Not politeness, not intellectual flair, not cleverness with words, just courage. And it sometimes takes a lot of courage to look a vulgar dummkopf in the eye and tell him that I am not trying to save the world. I gave up to that pursuit a long time ago. But I am trying to communicate to people that a number of condescending lounge lizards have been found subjugating persons of culture, refinement, and learning to unambitious authoritarians. It is vital that there be a thorough, credible investigation into Scheit's bromides in order to clarify and bring about possible accountability in these cases. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
How can you see into my eyes like open doors, leading you down into my core, where I've become so numb, without a soul? My spirit's sleeping somewhere cold until you find it there and lead it back home. Wake me up inside. I can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Save me. Call my name and save me from the dark. Wake me up. Put my blood to run. I can't wake up before I come undone. Save me. Save me from the nothing I've become. Now that I know what I'm without, you can't just leave me. Breathe into me and make me real. Bring me life. Wake me up inside. I can't wake up. Wake me up inside. Save me. Call my name and save me from the dark. Wake me up in my blood to run. I can't wake up before I come undone. Save me. Save me from the nothing I've become. Okay, I'll stop here. Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
Isn't ready yet.
She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. Well, the years start coming and they don't stop coming. Playing to the rules and I hit the ground running. That doesn't make sense not to live for fun. Your brain gets smart, but your head gets dumb. So much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back streets? You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Play now, you're an all-star. Get your goof on, go play. Play now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. All that glitters is gold. Only shooting stars break the mold. It's a cool place, and they say it gets colder. You're bundled up now, wait till you get older. Media men beg to differ, judging by the hole in the satellite picture. The ice we skate is getting pretty thin. The water's getting warm, so you might as well swim. My world's on fire, how about yours? That's the way I like it, and I'll never get bored. Play now, you're an all-star. Get your goof on, go play. Play now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. All that glitters is gold. Only shooting stars break the mold. Yuck. Go for the moon. This is my jam. Go for the moon. Check out these sick beats. Go for the moon. Play now, you're an all-star. Get your goof on, go play. Play now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. All that glitters is gold. Only shooting stars break. Fuck. Mickey? Do you want to build a snowman? Come on, let's go.
That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. Do that yet. isn't ready yet.
I can't do that.
Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. mana. I can't do that now. That ability isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. Not ready yet. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. still be charging. Not ready yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still be charging. That ability isn't ready yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. I can't do that yet. My mana is low. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't do that yet. I need more mana. That spell isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. That spell isn't ready yet.
What are you looking for? See you later.
target. It's too far away. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging. I need to get closer. It's too far away.
It became a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses. And the Lord said unto Moses,
Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that thou mayest know that there is none like me in all the earth. For now I will stretch out my hand, that I may smite thee and thy people with pestilence, and thou shalt be cut off from the earth. And in very deed for this cause have I raised thee up, for to show in thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. As yet exaltest thou thyself against my people, that thou
Off and away. You got my attention. Off with you. Hey! Pleased to meet you. Can I help you? Off and away. Hey. Daylight's burning.
recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That's still recharging.
Pray to me. Be good. See you soon.
Off with ya!
What can I do for you? Keep your feet on the ground. No. Safe.
charging. I can't cast that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. I can't cast that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't cast that yet. That ability isn't ready yet. That's still recharging. I can't do that yet. Not ready yet. That spell isn't ready yet. past that yet. That spell isn't ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. Not ready yet. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't do that yet. That's still recharging. That spell isn't ready yet. Recharging. That ability isn't ready yet. I can't That spell isn't ready yet. Still recharging. Charging.